So picture this. There's a guy who smoked for 20 years. He tried literally everything to quit, spent thousands of dollars fighting this one habit, and nothing. He just failed again and again. Then, on a work trip to Japan, he meets this old monk who teaches him a secret. And within 3 months, he'd quit smoking completely. Not with force, not with willpower, but with a method that felt, well, almost too easy. So what was this secret? It turns out it wasn't about fighting harder. It was about a totally different way of thinking about change. Let's get into it.
I mean, for 2 whole decades, he was just trapped. He did the nicotine patches, the meds, the therapy, he even tried hypnosis. Every single attempt was this huge battle, right? A declaration of war on himself. But every single time, the habit won, and it just left him feeling weaker and more hopeless than before. It was just this exhausting, expensive, and demoralizing fight. So the monk, he didn't offer him a new weapon for this war. In fact, he told him to just lay down his arms completely. He introduced a totally different philosophy, one that works with your mind, not against it. It's a way that doesn't rely on gritting your teeth, but on a kind of gentle understanding. And this, right here, is the absolute core of it all. What if everything we've been taught about breaking bad habits is completely backwards? What if our resistance, our struggle, that constant fight we put up, what if that's the very thing that's making the chains of our habits even stronger? This question is the key to unlocking a whole new approach. Okay, so first, let's talk about the approach that most of us know, the all or nothing trap. We treat our habits like these enemies that have to be conquered, so we launch these massive, all-out assaults on ourselves. But the thing is, this strategy is pretty much designed to fail right from the start. Does any of this sound familiar? You know, we go all in on some brutal gym plan in January only to burn out by February. We dramatically delete all our social media apps just to quietly reinstall them a few days later. We make these huge, grand promises, and when we inevitably fall short, we're just flooded with shame, which, of course, just pushes us right back into the very habit we are trying to break. It's a vicious cycle.
So here's the crucial contrast. On one hand, you have the Western way, which sees habits as enemies to be crushed with willpower. It's all about dramatic, overnight transformation, but this usually just leads to burnout. On the other hand, you have the Japanese way, the way of flow. It sees habits as just patterns to be understood. It uses observation and gentleness, aiming for these small, consistent steps that lead to lasting, natural change. Okay, so how do we actually begin? Well, the first major shift is to go from fighting an urge to simply observing it with curiosity. Now, I know that sounds super simple, but it is profoundly powerful, as we see in the story of a young monk. So the story goes, there's this young monk who was just consumed by anger. And the harder he fought against it, the stronger it got. So an older monk gave him this advice. He said, stop trying to get rid of it. Don't judge it, just watch it. Get curious. What does it actually feel like? Where is it in your body? What thoughts does it bring up? And the result was fascinating. By just observing, the young monk started to create a little bit of space between his awareness and the actual feeling of anger. He could feel it rising, but he no longer was the anger. You know, he wasn't controlled by it anymore. And over time, it just started to lose its power. It would visit less often and pass more quickly. Now, this whole practice is rooted in a core Buddhist concept, impermanence. It's the deep understanding that really nothing lasts forever. Not joy, not sadness, and, crucially for us, not cravings. That intense, desperate urge you feel for a cigarette, or for sugar, or to check your phone. It feels so permanent in the moment, but it's just a temporary wave that will, inevitably, pass. And this brings us right back to our smoker. Instead of fighting his cravings, he started studying them. When the urge hit, he'd literally pick up a cigarette, smell it, and just sit with the feeling. He wouldn't try to distract himself. He would just observe the craving, like a scientist, noticing how it moved through his body. And what did he discover? Get this, that most cravings reach their absolute peak for only about 3 to 5 minutes. That's it. That overwhelming, I must have it now feeling is incredibly brief. If you can learn to just sit with it, to kind of surf that wave without getting pulled under, you start to realize you are not your cravings. You are the one who observes them. So, we've shifted our mindset from fighting to observing. Great. Now, how do we actually turn that into action? Well, that's where a concept called Kaizen comes in, which basically means continuous small improvement.
You know how we love dramatic transformations? We want to go from couch potato to marathon runner overnight. The old way is to force ourselves to run 5 miles on day one, feel super sore, and then quit. The Kaizen way is almost insultingly small. The goal for day one isn't to run. It's just to put on your running shoes. That's it. This tiny step is so non-threatening that it just slips right past your brain's resistance, making it super easy to build momentum.
Here's a perfect real-world example. A woman in Kyoto used Kaizen to break a shopping addiction. She didn't cut up her credit cards or anything drastic. She just made one tiny rule: wait 24 hours before any online purchase. That small delay broke the cycle of instant gratification. Over a few months, she extended the wait to 2 days, then a week, and eventually she found she rarely even wanted the items anymore.
Okay, so we have observation and we have small steps, but there are two more crucial ingredients that really fuel this entire process: finding a deeper meaning to replace the habit and treating yourself with compassion along the way. So many of our habits just exist to fill a void, right? We're bored or we're stressed or lonely. To truly break a habit, you can't just leave an empty space there. You need to find your Ikigai, your reason for being. You have to replace the habit's function with something that genuinely gives your life purpose and meaning. But this isn't about simple substitution. Check this out. This programmer realized he wasn't addicted to alcohol, he was addicted to the ritual that helped him shift from a stressful workday to his personal time. So he created a new ritual: making tea and sketching. This met that same underlying need for transition, but in a way that was creative and actually aligned with his true self. And finally, none of this works without self-compassion. The Western approach so often uses shame as a motivator. We beat ourselves up when we slip, but shame just creates an internal war. When you make a mistake, the Japanese approach encourages you to treat yourself like you would a good friend, with kindness, with understanding, and with gentle encouragement to just try again. Lasting change can only grow from self-acceptance, never from self-hatred. So let's put this all together with one final, really powerful metaphor. The Japanese system recognizes that you aren't actually breaking a habit. You are building something new. Change isn't about destruction at all. It's about creation. Think of your bad habit as a deeply worn path in a forest. You've walked it so many times that your brain just follows it automatically, totally on autopilot. It's the path of least resistance, even if it leads somewhere you don't really want to go anymore. Now here's the key. You can't erase the old path. It's there. The goal is to start walking a new one. Every time you choose a different behavior, observing a craving instead of acting on it, reading one page of a book instead of scrolling, you are taking the first difficult steps onto a brand new trail. And this is how real change happens. Each time you walk that new path, it gets a little easier, a little clearer. And meanwhile, the old, unused path slowly starts to get overgrown with weeds and bushes. With enough repetition, the new path becomes your brain's default. It becomes the new automatic, easy choice. Not through force, but just through patient creation. So let's just end with this. The habit you want to break, it isn't some evil enemy you have to destroy. It's a teacher. It's a signpost pointing to some unmet need, a place where you're a little bit out of alignment with yourself. So ask yourself, what is this habit trying to show me?